What if your backyard could quietly protect your family's food supply for decades? In this video, we're breaking down 10 climate-proof perennial foods that continue producing year after year with very little maintenance. These are crops you plant once and harvest for many seasons, even as weather patterns become less predictable. If you're thinking about long-term food security, building a resilient garden, or creating a more sustainable homestead, this guide will give you practical options you can actually use. We'll cover everything from calorie-dense nut trees that provide reliable energy, to hardy fruit varieties and nutrient-rich leafy greens that come back every season. These perennials are strong, adaptable, and well-suited for modern backyard farming. Many of them tolerate heat, cold, drought, or heavy rain better than typical annual crops, making them smart choices for uncertain climates. Whether you're focused on self-sufficiency, emergency preparedness, or simply lowering your grocery bill, these plants can become the backbone of your long-term survival food system. You'll learn why each crop matters, how it supports your household, and what makes it a dependable investment. By the end, you'll have clear, realistic ideas to turn your backyard into a steady, low-maintenance food source that keeps working for you year after year. 10 climate-proof, perennial foods that could transform backyard survival. Vegetables, root, and herbs. 1. Asparagus, the low-maintenance survival crop that feeds you for decades. If you're serious about backyard survival gardening, asparagus is one of the smartest perennial vegetables you can plant. Unlike most garden crops that need to be replanted every season, asparagus is a long-term investment. Once it's established, it can produce nutrient-dense spears every spring for 15 to 20 years with very little maintenance. That kind of reliability makes it a strong addition to any self-sufficient homestead or food security plan. Asparagus grows best in well-drained soil with plenty of sunlight. It does require patience in the beginning, since you typically wait 2 to 3 years before harvesting. However, that early effort pays off for many years afterward. As the root system matures, the plants often become more productive over time, which is uncommon for most vegetable crops. With basic care like occasional weeding, compost, and proper watering, an asparagus bed can stay healthy and consistent for well over a decade. From a nutrition standpoint, asparagus is a solid choice. It's high in fiber, folate, vitamins A, C, and K, and contains antioxidants that support overall health. It's also low in calories and easy to prepare, making it practical for everyday meals. For gardeners focused on climate resilience, asparagus is dependable. Once established, it tolerates seasonal changes well and returns each year without the need for constant replanting. If you want a low-maintenance crop that delivers steady harvests and long-term value, asparagus deserves a place in your backyard garden. 2. Jerusalem artichoke, the underground carb source for food independence. Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes, are one of the most climate-resilient perennial foods you can grow at home. They adapt well to poor soil, handle drought better than many common vegetables, and survive freezing winters without special protection. Because of this toughness, they are a smart choice for survival gardening and emergency preparedness plans. If you're looking to build a more secure food supply in your own backyard, this plant deserves serious consideration. The edible tubers grow underground and provide a starchy, calorie-dense food source that can be prepared much like potatoes, roasted, mashed, added to soups, or sliced thin and sautéed. One of the biggest advantages of Jerusalem artichokes is how easily they multiply. After the first planting, the tubers spread underground and return year after year, gradually expanding your harvest with minimal effort. This means a single investment of time and seed stock can turn into a long-term backyard food system. They do not require rich soil or heavy fertilizing, and they tend to resist most common pests and diseases, which helps reduce ongoing garden costs and maintenance. For homesteaders and anyone focused on food resilience and sustainable agriculture, Jerusalem artichokes offer dependable production with low input. They are practical, productive, and well-suited for uncertain growing conditions, making them a reliable addition to any self-sufficiency plan. Three. Moringa, the superfood tree for nutrient security. Moringa is often called the miracle tree, and in climate-smart gardening, that reputation makes sense. In warm regions, it grows fast and requires relatively simple care. Within a short time after planting, it begins producing leaves that are rich in protein, vitamins A and C, calcium, iron, and antioxidants. For anyone building a resilient food system at home, Moringa delivers high nutritional value from a small growing space. One of its biggest advantages is how quickly it regrows. Even when the leaves are harvested regularly and in large amounts, the tree continues to produce fresh growth throughout the season. This makes it especially useful for households that want a steady supply of leafy greens without constantly replanting crops. Instead of waiting months for another harvest, Moringa keeps producing. Once established, Moringa is also drought-tolerant. It can handle dry periods better than many common garden vegetables. That makes it a strong choice for areas facing water restrictions or unpredictable rainfall due to climate change. While it grows best in warm climates, it can also be managed as a container plant or seasonal crop in cooler regions. For families thinking about long-term food security, Moringa is a practical addition to a backyard garden. It provides consistent nutrition, requires modest inputs, and supports self-reliance. Whether used fresh in meals, dried into powder, or added to smoothies and soups, Moringa offers a dependable way to strengthen a home-based food system without complicated techniques or expensive supplies. Four. Rhubarb cold-hardy perennial for reliable early harvests. Rhubarb is one of the first crops to show up in early spring, often pushing through the soil when most other plants are still dormant. At a time when fresh food options are limited, rhubarb provides a dependable source of homegrown produce. It grows especially well in colder climates and can handle freezing winters without needing to be replanted each year. Because of this, it's a strong choice for anyone interested in climate-resilient homesteading or building a garden that can handle unpredictable weather. Once rhubarb is established, it can keep producing thick, edible stalks for 10 years or more with minimal care. Unlike annual vegetables that require replanting every season, rhubarb is a perennial. That means you plant it once and continue harvesting year after year. This saves time, effort, and resources, which is important in a self-sufficient setup. While it prefers rich, well-drained soil with plenty of organic matter, rhubarb is more adaptable than many people expect. It can tolerate temperature swings and still produce a reliable harvest. In a backyard survival garden focused on long-term food security, rhubarb adds both stability and variety. The stalks can be used in pies, jams, sauces, and even savory dishes, giving you flexible options in the kitchen. It's also a low-maintenance plant once established, requiring basic watering, occasional compost, and division every few years to stay productive. If you're planning a practical, resilient garden, rhubarb is a smart crop to include for consistent early-season harvests and long-term value. 5. Sweet potatoes, heat-tolerant survival energy crop. While sweet potatoes are commonly grown as annual crops, they can actually behave like perennials in warm climates where frost is rare or non-existent. In regions with long, hot growing seasons, the plants continue to produce and can even regrow from remaining roots left in the soil. This makes them especially valuable for gardeners who want reliable food production with minimal replanting effort. Sweet potatoes perform best in hot weather and handle dry conditions better than many other root crops, making them a dependable option when water is limited. One of their biggest advantages is how much food they can produce in a relatively small space. The tubers are calorie-dense, rich in carbohydrates, and store well after curing, which makes them practical for long-term food storage. For survival gardening or backyard food production, this efficiency matters. You get a high-energy return from a crop that does not demand constant attention once established. Beyond the roots, the vines also produce edible leaves. These leaves can be cooked like spinach and provide additional vitamins and minerals, adding more value to each plant. With proper mulching to retain moisture and improve soil structure, along with basic soil health management, such as composting, yields can remain strong even in challenging climates. For anyone interested in sustainable living, food security, or building an emergency food supply, sweet potatoes are a strategic and practical choice. They are low maintenance, productive, and versatile, making them a smart addition to almost any home garden. Six. Perennial kale, continuous greens for year-round nutrition. Perennial varieties of kale can produce leafy greens for multiple years without the need to replant them every season. Unlike annual greens that complete their life cycle in 1 year, perennial kale continues to grow and produce after each harvest. When you cut the outer leaves, the plant keeps developing new ones, allowing you to harvest again and again. These plants also handle cool temperatures very well and can survive light frosts, making them a reliable option in many regions across the United States. Because of this resilience, gardeners can count on a steady supply of fresh greens even when other crops slow down. This consistency makes perennial kale a smart choice for organic gardening and long-term food sustainability. Once established, the plants require less effort compared to starting new seedlings each year. They generally face fewer pest problems than many other leafy vegetables, and they do not demand heavy fertilizer applications to stay productive. With basic care such as regular watering, occasional compost, and proper spacing, they can remain healthy and productive for years. Nutritionally, perennial kale is packed with vitamins A, C, and K, which support immune function, bone health, and overall wellness. During stressful times, when access to fresh produce may be limited, having a dependable source of nutrient-dense greens in your backyard can make a real difference. For anyone interested in climate-resilient survival crops or building a low-cost backyard farming system, perennial kale stands out as one of the most dependable leafy greens you can grow. 7. Mulberry trees, fast-growing fruit for abundant harvests. Mulberry trees are a practical choice for anyone interested in growing reliable food at home. They grow quickly compared to many other fruit trees and start producing generous harvests once they reach maturity. After just a few years, a healthy mulberry tree can provide a steady supply of fruit each season. These trees handle heat well, adapt to different rainfall patterns, and tolerate a wide range of soil types, from sandy to clay-heavy ground. Because of this flexibility, they are a strong option for climate-resilient gardening, especially in areas with unpredictable weather. For people building a self-sufficient food forest or backyard orchard, mulberry trees offer long-term value with relatively low effort. The berries are rich in antioxidants and other nutrients, making them a healthy addition to your diet. You can eat them fresh right off the tree, dry them for long-term storage, or turn them into jams, preserves, and baked goods. Their natural sweetness also makes them a useful substitute for processed sugar in some recipes. Once established, mulberry trees require minimal maintenance. Basic care usually includes occasional pruning to control size and encourage airflow. They are generally hardy and do not demand constant attention. In a survival-focused or preparedness-minded backyard setup, mulberries provide dependable calories and consistent production year after year. Instead of replanting annual crops every season, you can rely on one well-placed tree to keep producing with little extra work, making it a smart and efficient addition to any home garden. 8. Egyptian walking onions, the self-multiplying survival allium. Egyptian walking onions are one of the most fascinating perennial vegetables you can grow in a backyard survival garden. Unlike most onions that depend mainly on seeds, this plant produces small clusters of bulbs at the top of its stalks. As these bulb clusters grow heavier, the stalk naturally bends toward the ground. Once they touch the soil, the bulbs take root and grow into new plants. This natural self-propagating process allows the plant to slowly walk across your garden over time without much help from you. Because of this unique growth habit, they are a great fit for sustainable living and low-maintenance homesteading systems. One of the biggest advantages of Egyptian walking onions is their toughness. They can handle cold winters, changing rainfall patterns, and less than perfect soil conditions. This makes them highly resilient in different climates across the United States. Even beginner gardeners can grow them successfully with minimal effort. Once established, they come back year after year, reducing the need for replanting and saving both time and money. Another reason they stand out is their versatility in the kitchen. Every part of the plant is edible. The underground bulbs can be used like traditional onions, while the green stalks work well as a substitute for scallions. Even the top bulb clusters can be harvested and cooked. This means you get continuous harvests throughout the growing season, adding steady flavor and nutrition to your meals. For anyone focused on long-term food security, organic gardening, or building a reliable backyard food system, Egyptian walking onions are a smart addition. They require little input, multiply on their own, and consistently produce food year after year. Few crops offer this level of independence and productivity with so little maintenance. 9. Sorrel, hardy leafy green for reliable nutrition. Sorrel is a cold hardy perennial green that comes back year after year without needing to be replanted. It is one of the first plants to appear in early spring, often pushing through the soil while temperatures are still low. Even in cooler climates where many vegetables struggle to grow, sorrel continues to produce fresh, tangy leaves. In a climate-proof survival garden, this makes it a reliable source of nutrition when other crops are not yet ready or have stopped producing. One of the biggest advantages of sorrel is how easy it is to grow. It adapts well to different soil types, including average garden soil, and does not require heavy fertilizing. It also tends to face fewer pest problems compared to many common vegetables. With basic watering and occasional trimming, sorrel can thrive for years in the same spot. Because it is perennial, it saves time, seeds, and effort over the long term. Nutritionally, sorrel offers real benefits. Its bright, lemon-like flavor comes from natural compounds that also provide antioxidants. The leaves contain vitamin C, vitamin A, and important minerals that support overall health. Adding sorrel to soups, salads, sauces, or egg dishes is an easy way to increase variety and nutrient intake without complicated preparation. 10. Chestnut trees, long-term calorie security for backyard food forests. Chestnut trees are one of the most practical long-term food investments for anyone serious about backyard survival planning or building a resilient homestead. Once the trees reach maturity, they consistently produce large quantities of high-calorie nuts that can be roasted for immediate use, dehydrated for storage, or ground into flour as a wheat alternative. Because of their carbohydrate content and yield potential, chestnuts function much like a grain crop, except they grow on trees and return year after year without the need for replanting. From a food security standpoint, this matters. Annual crops require tilling, planting, watering, and protection every single season. Chestnut trees, on the other hand, are a long-term system. After the establishment phase, they require relatively low maintenance compared to traditional row crops. With proper spacing, pruning, and basic pest management, a healthy chestnut tree can remain productive for decades. Conclusion. Building a climate-resilient garden isn't about fear. It's about preparation, independence, and making smart planting choices that work for the long term. Weather patterns are becoming less predictable, and grocery prices can shift quickly. Having a garden that's designed to handle heat, heavy rain, cold snaps, or dry periods gives you more stability and control over your food supply. It's a practical step toward reducing risk and building consistency at home. Start by focusing on plants that naturally come back year after year, like perennial vegetables. Add hardy root crops that store well and tolerate temperature swings. Include nutrient-dense greens that grow fast and can handle different conditions. Plant fruit trees that mature over time and provide steady harvests each season. Consider long-term nut producers as well, since they offer reliable yields and require less replanting once established. These choices help create a system that keeps producing even when conditions aren't ideal. You don't need to do everything at once. Begin with 1 or 2 dependable crops and expand gradually. As you learn what works best in your space, you'll build confidence and experience. Over time, your backyard can become a dependable, sustainable food source that supports real self-reliance and reduces dependence on outside systems.